So I released an hour-and-a-half long review about Animal Crossing New Horizons back in September. It's seriously as long as a feature-length film. I went all out with that review. I went super in-depth into a ton of different aspects of the game. I picked everything apart just to try to determine how well Animal Crossing New Horizons holds up. Well, leave it to a major update to render that video obsolete. But I'm not really angry about it. New Horizons 2.0 has added enormous amounts of content, and I think it addresses most of the initial issues New Horizons had. It seriously brought new life to the game. People are coming back to play. I haven't seen the game get this much love since it launched. So, what's different about this update? Why does it stand out compared to the previous updates? I want to look at 6 fundamental things that got changed and tied the experience of New Horizons together. The first is Nook Miles. In my review, I talked about how Nook Miles were basically obsolete in the late game. Most people focused on purchasing Nook Mile tickets. Outside of that, there really wasn't much of a reason to get them. On top of that, the tasks were repetitive. We needed some fresh activities and long-term goals to work toward. With this update, we got a whole slew of new tasks and rewards. All of the new features like cooking, the roost, stretching, and Cap'n Islands have long-term goals to chip at on a daily basis. Even old goals like seeing KK Slider 100 times felt revamped because KK Slider got new music. Now, I look forward to each show every Saturday even more because I know I'm gonna hear a fresh song that I've never heard before. But of course, the big reason for collecting Nook Miles is to spend them on items. We got a decent amount of new items to redeem from the Nook Stop, but this update also brought more life to the existing items. The color palette of items you get in the Nook Stop is tied to your airport. Until now, we've been stuck with trading for other item colors we really want. Now that Reese and Cyrus are at Harv's, we can customize every single Nook Stop item on our own. It feels really good not having to rely on people online to get the item variations. It also has me buying items I'd normally ignore just because I can't actually get the version of it I want. But even bigger than that, this also makes a lot more of the game accessible to more players. There are tons of people out there who don't have online, and now they finally have a way to get these items. The next reason is crafting and cooking. Before this update, I had every single DIY in the game. On top of that, I had crafted every single DIY as well. There was nothing left for me to work toward in terms of collecting DIYs. The task of collecting DIYs also became more of an annoyance. Oh, my villager is crafting again? Something I already have? Oh well. You get to the point where you ignore those villagers. You also ignore bottles on the beach and are terrified of the sound of balloons flying over to disappoint you when they're not a DIY. This update not only added a bunch of new crafting DIYs, but we also have the cooking recipes to look out for. Every time I see a villager cooking, I get excited because I know I'm basically guaranteed a new item. And on top of that, recipe collection got way more interesting with cooking. There are so many recipes that we can learn from catching fish. I caught and donated every fish in the game, and there's literally no reason for me to do it outside of that Nook Miles goal, but here I am, finding a reason to fish again. Overall, I'm picking up bottles on my beach again, I'm chasing down balloons, I'm excited to check if a villager is crafting, and I'm back to that log in every 3 hours to see who's crafting schedule, and it feels really nice to be excited about that. And the cherry on top? The items are really good. The new stuff we can craft is great. The cooking is especially splendid because it's focused on finding ingredients. It feels like there's more depth to the items we can craft and cook. It uses more than the basic materials like the chopped woods or the rocks. The fact that we've got to make flour and sugar to make a lot of the food adds depth to the process that has been lacking in the regular crafted items. It also keeps incentivizing you to tend to your crops and make sure you grow ingredients. The cooking is just built in a way that makes the system come together cohesively. The next part combines a lot of aspects to the game. Developing, shopping, and visiting vendors have been combined at Harv's Island. Think back to the beginning of the game. Remember how much fun it was to develop the island? Building the museum, Nook's Cranny, Able Sisters, adding homes on your island, creating your community. There was such a push in the early game to build up your town, and it was incredibly fun. But all of that dropped off so quickly. It felt like the progression was gone. But here comes Harriet, and bam! Harv finally gets off his lazy butt and builds something good. Harv's Island gives us a permanent space to shop with some select vendors. Kix, Red, Leaf, and Sahara have a weekly rotation of old and new items. On top of that, Harriet has some new hairstyles. Reese and Cyrus customize things, Tortimer gives us access to our storage, and Katrina gives us our fortunes. My favorite part about this space is that we have to unlock each vendor, and we can only unlock one per day. It gives us a goal to work toward over time. It lets us anticipate future vendors and gives us a chance to be excited. And once the shops are open, they've got new items for us to enjoy. Leaf now sells seeds so we can plant all the new crops and get to cooking. Kix has new stuff in stock. Sahara has more items and finally a proper window that shows us what she has for sale. Red makes art more readily available, but the raffle got a huge upgrade. Look at all of these cute items we can hold now. This entire space gives us more to explore and enjoy every day. Seriously, there was basically no reason to go to Harv's before this update, but now it's something I look forward to on a daily basis. From here, I think we need to talk about how this stuff goes toward the design focus of New Horizons. Every single aspect works toward giving players more that they can use around their islands and in their homes. So many people felt like their islands were finished and there was nothing left to do, but now we have more inclines, ladders, and vines, new villagers, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and all of these new items that we can use throughout the island. And now it has me rethinking how I'm going to approach terraforming. It gives me new stuff to redecorate all of my existing spaces. I feel like I have more ways to bring my island and home together. I'm spending time thinking about where to move my villagers' homes, and for now, I have them off on the beach. It's great to have possibilities for the future. And if you bought the DLC, that only expands the design options. Interior design has gotten revamped in a way I never imagined would happen. And once you've gotten far enough in Happy Home Paradise, you can finally fix your neighbors' homes. Between the new stuff you can put outside and the new ways you can arrange your rooms and your villagers' rooms, there are just way too many activities to get lost in. One of the biggest complaints people had about the game was the villagers. In my review, I actually did defend their dialogue, but I pointed out that there was one huge issue with the villagers, and that was how you got interesting dialogue. It seems like they've reprogrammed them to get more interesting dialogue a lot sooner, but the most important change I've noticed is how much more often they ask you to do tasks. I'm one of those old school Animal Crossing fans that started with the GameCube game, and if you've ever played that one, you know that a huge part of the game is running errands for your villagers. You're rewarded with new stuff, and believe me, new stuff was hard to get in those old games. It finally feels like your villagers are worth talking to because they can ask you for favors. One of the big new interactions is visits. You can visit your home or visit theirs. Once there, they can give you a gift, and they even play this new game with you for an extra gift. All of these interactions come with more dialogue and gives them more personality and depth. It used to be easy to ignore your villagers, but now there's an incentive to the interaction. They've been gifting me a lot of new clothing to wear, and I love it. Funny enough, Katrina's place actually pushes that in a big way too. She gives you a reading that tells you how close you and a villager are. She can then bless your friendship and up the amount of friendship points you get for interacting with them for the day. It feels like I'm building friendships with my villagers this time around. I feel like they're more than an aesthetic set piece in my island, and more like they're part of this little community. And that's an incredibly important part to a life sim game. So finally, I want to talk about dailies. They're just the tasks you like to do on a daily basis. For months, my schedule was built around my final Nook Mile tasks. My goal was to complete every stamp card, so I built my daily schedule around that. I would catch some fish, some bugs, and some diving creatures. I'd do a bit of crafting for tools and furniture, and I would accomplish some Nook Miles Plus goals along the way. All of these things were solely for the purpose of completing these cards. It got to the point where it was just a bit of a chore. But we got a big number of new tasks added to our app. Going to Brewster's is now a long-term goal. Doing my stretches on a daily basis is important. Going to Cap'n Islands has to be something I do every day. All of these new tasks go toward our stamp cards, but they also bring some nice charm and surprise to the game. Going to Brewster's gives us some special rewards only Brewster can provide. There are also tons of charming conversations in that space. Doing your stretches gives you an item, but also lets you watch your characters be adorable, and going to Cap'n Islands can put you on some magical places with special DIYs. It all really brings a bit of random magic to the game that was missing before. Overall, I think this update has revamped the game in a way that makes its systems come together. It feels more like a life sim. It feels like the design is well thought out, and it just feels really good to play and see other people enjoying their time with it. As for a review of this game now that the update exists, well, my big question in the first review was how well the game held up after a year. Animal Crossing is the type of game that is intended to be played over long periods of time. I think I'm going to have to spend more time with it and see how the game feels after a few months. For now, please let me know how you're enjoying the update in the comments. I'd love to hear your experiences and what you've been up to on your islands. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you all next time. Bye! This video was brought to you thanks to my producers over on Patreon. If you'd like to support me and my work, please head to patreon.com/ChuyPlays.